Coming up on Locked On Dodgers, the National League lost the All-Star game. Some Dodgers had pretty good contributions. One Dodger, unfortunately, had the bad contribution. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Mookie Betts and his tribute to Rachel Robinson before the game and just kind of his growth as a person and a player. And we're going to talk a little bit about where the Dodgers stand at the All-Star break and what it would take for anybody to catch them in the National League West. So let's get Locked On Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, Dodger fans. This is Locked On Dodgers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. Remember, this show is free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers. Or even better, go ahead and subscribe wherever you're watching or listening right now, and then you'll never miss a day because you know we're not going to. If this is your first time watching or listening, my name is Jeff Snider. My co-host is Vince Samperio, but it's just me today. Vince has spent the last 2 days covering the Home Run Derby and the All-Star Game for his day job, and he is, pooped. So he's taking the day off. It's just me talking about the All-Star Game and a bunch of other stuff. Vince and I are both lifelong Dodger fans, just like you are. We've also both spent time covering the Dodgers in the press box and the locker room. So we're not quite insiders, which is a good thing, but we bring you the smart fans perspective on our boys in blue. So again, let's get started on this. And as I mentioned at the top, the National League lost the All-Star Game. Again, it seems to be the main thing that happens. Of course, the National League has won the last 3 World Series, so maybe it's a fair trade-off. It's weird. The World Series seems to be a lot more evenly spread between the two leagues than the All-Star Game lately. And I guess maybe that just means the National League is more top-heavy, maybe, or National League fans are worse at picking all-stars. I don't know. It's hard to put too much stock into a game where the starting lineups are voted on by the fans because it's not necessarily the best players. As you'll recall, Will Smith wasn't even on the team, and that's an issue. But not a huge issue because it's the All-Star Game. Will Smith will get his All-Star games, but I'm telling you right now, if he gets snubbed again in 2023, I don't know what's going to happen, but it's going to be bad. But this one, Clayton Kershaw got the start. We talked a lot yesterday about that and how it was absolutely the right thing to do. And it was exciting. He pitched the first inning. You could tell he was emotional. He broke with his general tradition or general sense of game day protocol. He stood there and talked on the field in an interview immediately before taking the mound to pitch. He would never do that in a regular season game, I don't think, and he definitely wouldn't do it in a postseason game. But pitching in the All-Star Game in his home stadium, a game that doesn't actually matter in a moment that really does matter. He took that time, and then he talked right after his inning, and you could tell he's a little bit emotional, not like sobbing or anything, but you could tell that it meant a lot to him to be in that situation. In the game, he gave up very first pitch. Not a bad pitch, maybe even a little bit outside. Shohei Ohtani reached out, hit it off the end of the bat, and blooped a single into center field. And then Kershaw said, "Hey, guess what, Shohei? I'm going to pick you off." And he did. It was funny. It wasn't even Kershaw's A move, I don't think. It was just kind of a move, and I think he would just keep him honest. And then when he realized that Shohei went the wrong way, then he kind of put a little something on the throw, and Goldschmidt put a nice tag down, and Shohei was out. Kershaw struck out Aaron Judge. He walked Rafael Devers, and then he got a ground out from Vlad Guerrero Jr., and that was it for Kershaw's All-Star game, and it looked like he might be in line for the win because in the bottom of the first, Mookie Betts, Kershaw's teammate, drove in the first run of the game with the base hit up the middle. If you are watching this on YouTube and you notice the cover photo on this YouTube video, it's a photo of that swing. Mookie, look closer. It's the most amazing photo I've seen. I think there's so much detail there. You can see Mookie's eyes on the ball. You see the catcher's eyes. I don't know. I'm not normally a photography nut, but this picture really blew me away. Acuna doubled the lead off the game. Mookie hit a base hit up the middle to drive him in. Later, Paul Goldschmidt. So Mookie was eliminated on a double play by Manny Machado because Machado's not clutch. And then Paul Goldschmidt hit a home run. Later in that inning, Trey Turner had a base hit. So Dodgers' first inning was great. Kershaw, Mookie, and Trey all getting in on the action. Unfortunately, the National League only had one more hit the rest of the game, and that one didn't come for a long time. It ended up being meaningless. And in the fourth inning, Tony Gonsolin was pitching, and he left a really bad two-strike pitch right over the plate to Giancarlo Stanton. Stanton hit it. I believe the official measurement was 800 miles, uh, either that or 457 feet. It was a blast to left center. Just one of those no-doubters that Stanton does as well as anybody. That tied up the game, and then the next batter, Byron Buxton, hit a pitch that wasn't a bad pitch. It was a bad pitch. Like, nobody should have had any business hitting it. It was at least a foot above the strike zone, and Byron Buxton went up and hit it out for the lead, and that ended up being all the scoring for the game. That put the AL up 3-2. That was the final score because, as I mentioned, the National League didn't do much. Neither did the American League after that. It was kind of a boring game after that. But unfortunately, what looked like it might be a winning decision for Clayton Kershaw turned into a losing decision for Tony Gonsolin. Freddie Freeman batted later and grounded out on a decent play in the infield. And Tyler Anderson didn't get in the game. And that's it for the Dodgers All-Stars. But the moment was really Kershaw's. Mookie's been in All-Star games before. He'll be again. I know this one was meaningful for him. It was his first one in a Dodger uniform because last year he wasn't able to play because of his hip issues. In 2020, obviously, there wasn't an All-Star game. So it was his first time playing in an All-Star game in a Dodger uniform, doing it at Dodger Stadium. It's meaningful. He only got the one at bat, and he got an RBI single off it. It's a big deal. Trey Turner's first and hopefully not only All-Star game in a Dodger uniform. We don't know if Trey will be back next year for the All-Star game as a Dodger or be there as a member of a different team. But now that I think about it, everybody except Kershaw, the other five, all of them, it's their first time playing in an All-Star game as a Dodger. Tyler Anderson didn't play, but it's his first All-Star team as a Dodger. It's not Mookie's first All-Star team as a Dodger, but his first time playing. So yeah, Kershaw was the only veteran Dodger there. And really the moment was Kershaw's. And it was from the reception he got from the crowd, the reception, just the way you could tell it meant a ton to him. Everything about the moment, it was great. And yeah, it would have been awesome if he came in and struck out the side, threw an immaculate inning, whatever. But it was almost a little bit better. Like, he kind of got to show up, other than the walk. The walk is kind of, it's not Kershaw's MO, but Kershaw's actually throughout his career had a really good pickoff move. So it was fun that he got to show that off. Getting Ohtani got a hit off him, but it wasn't hit hard. It's not like you hang your head about that. Ohtani put a good swing on a good pitch and blooped it in. And then striking out Aaron Judge is cool. Getting Vlad Guerrero, who you remember last year, was very successful in the All-Star game. So a lot of good stuff and really just what you hoped for from the moment as a Dodger fan. And I'm very, very glad that Clayton Kershaw got to have that moment. And Sandy Alcantara got to pitch second inning, pitched really, really well. And Marlins fans, if you're listening, more people saw Sandy Alcantara pitch today because Clayton Kershaw started the game. Fewer people would have tuned into the game if it was Sandy Alcantara against not Rue McClanahan, Shane McClanahan. Rue McClanahan was on Golden Girls. But, you need the star power. That's what the All-Star game is about. And so I'm glad that Sandy Alcantara got to pitch and pitched well. Happy for him. And I think it worked out perfectly. So speaking of things that worked out perfectly, this game was held on Rachel Robinson's 100th birthday. And I'm going to come back and I'm going to talk about Mookie Betts paying tribute to Rachel Robinson before the game, and just kind of based off something that Fabian Ardaya wrote, kind of the growth of Mookie Betts as a person over the last few years. So thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every day, and please keep it Locked On Dodgers. Hey, whether you're ready to pop the question or you're celebrating a milestone moment or you just want to buy that special someone some jewelry, find jewelry as unique as her with the modern convenience of online shopping at BlueNile.com. One of the cool things about BlueNile.com is you can make a totally unique ring. If you're looking to pop the question, propose, as they say, and you don't want a cookie cutter ring, ring cutter ring. Anyway, you don't want something that just anybody can buy. You want something that you designed that is all you and really represents your love for that person. Go to BlueNile.com and you can design it. You can do the shape. You can pick out the diamond and everything, the setting style, all that stuff. I had to do that when I proposed to my wife 20 years ago. I had to go to an actual private jeweler and design it with him and wait weeks and weeks and pay a ton of money to get this customized ring. BlueNile.com, you can do it all online, and it really can be unique. It's all up to you. And if you don't know exactly what you want, they have jewelry experts on hand 24/7, available via phone or chat to help you find a memorable gift at every budget. So, whatever your moment is, make your moment sparkle with jewelry from BlueNile.com. And going on now is the Blue Nile anniversary sale. Save up to 40% on classic fine jewelry pieces and 25% on engagement ring settings. Plus, every order is insured, ships free, and arrives in discreet packaging that won't give away what's inside. Shop stress free and find your forever piece. Go to BlueNile.com today. All right, I am back. And as I mentioned, going to the break, Tuesday was Rachel Robinson's 100th birthday. Rachel, of course, I can't even call her Rachel. Mrs. Robinson um, is the widow of Jackie Robinson. And she is just the epitome of class and dignity. And every time when you see Rachel Robinson, you can't help but smile. Everything about her just exudes kindness and love and power. And it's a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful thing when anybody gets to 100 years old. It doesn't happen very often. And somebody like Mrs. Robinson, who has been a widow for 49 years. Jackie Robinson died in 1973, and she's been a widow all this time without him, and yet carrying on his legacy, the legacy that they built together. I think it's easy to forget that she went through all of that stuff with him when he broke into the major leagues. Every threat against him was a threat against her too. Every hotel that he couldn't sleep in was a hotel she couldn't sleep in too. And while he was the public face of the struggle, she was right there with him. And those of you who are married might know that the wives kind of deal with stuff even when it's the husband's struggle, quote unquote, uh, that it's his. She deals with it at least as much as he does. And we husbands couldn't get through those things without our wives a lot of the time. And I know that that's true with Jackie and Rachel Robinson. And so it's so wonderful and amazing that she is still with us. And, I don't take that for granted. It's not going to be forever. When you have people like Rachel Robinson, and, we've seen just in the last couple of years, losing Don Newcomb, and just recently, Mike Brito, these people who are links to baseball history and Dodger history, and knowing they're not going to be there forever. It breaks my heart to think about the fact that Vin Scully isn't going to be around forever. And Rachel Robinson is a link to maybe the most important bit of baseball history there is, and still having her around is wonderful. And before the game, actually on Monday, I think, maybe it was just earlier on Tuesday, Major League Baseball, somebody approached Mookie Betts and said, "Do you want to take a chance to honor Mrs. Robinson?" And so he did. And so before the game, after introductions and everything, all the All-Stars gathered together on the field, and Mookie Betts grabbed the microphone and he announced it was a special day, that in addition to the All-Star game, it was also Rachel Robinson's 100th birthday. He led the crowd of 52,000 plus in telling Rachel Robinson happy birthday. She wasn't there. I imagine at 100 years old, you probably don't go many places unless you have to. But I know she was watching, and I hope that she felt the love that the crowd was giving her, because she deserves it. And to have Mookie in that situation, Fabian Ardaya of The Athletic, who is an outstanding Dodgers beat writer and just a really good dude, really good writer, and tells some really great stories. And he wrote about Mookie and his growth the last couple of years. And basically, the Mookie Betts who played for the Red Sox probably wouldn't have done that, wouldn't have been the person they approached in the first place, and wouldn't have felt comfortable doing that. And there were other players in that game who very easily could have been that voice. Giancarlo Stanton, who ended up winning the MVP award of the All-Star game, Byron Buxton, the other home run hitter, Aaron Judge, There are other black players in this game who kind of carry on the legacy of Jackie Robinson very meaningfully. But Mookie Betts being in the Dodger uniform, maybe it's a little more meaningful there, or a little bit more poignant. And so they did approach him. And like I said, a couple years ago, he wouldn't have been able to accept that invitation. But Fabian writes really eloquently about Mookie's growth and what he's done, and just how he is as a person. And Mookie says, when you're young, it's kind of hard to be yourself. You have to perform. You're dead set on performing, performing, performing. And you have this microscope and everyone watching you perform. You have to get your numbers, try to sign the contract, those type of things. That's a part of it. Everyone goes through it. But once you get on the other side, it's a little easier to become yourself and just sit back and enjoy the game. Excuse me, I had to take a sip of water. Um, yeah, and so it's kind of funny, like the other side of it. I think what Mookie's talking about is that big contract and how now he's not playing for financial security for his family anymore. Yeah, Mookie was making good money, but uh, it's amazing when you have a career as short as Major League Baseball players have. Um, you think about, oh, they're making $1 million a year. Even the league minimum's 600,000 or whatever. If you make the league minimum for a year and then you're out of baseball, you're not set for life, not even close. And your career is over. You got to figure out something else. And Mookie, by the time he was going, he had made money in arbitration. He was doing just fine. But that big contract kind of said, okay, now I literally never have to think about money ever again. And now, yeah, I think that's opened him up to feel comfortable being who he is, like you said, being himself. He obviously, the performance is still important to him. They talk also in this article. Trey Turner talks about what a perfectionist Mookie Betts is, how he wants to be his best all the time. But there's not that financial pressure to do it. It's just pressure he puts on himself, which is a little bit different, I think. And just this article talks about what a good person Mookie Betts is. Trey Turner said he's an unbelievable human being. I think everyone knows Mookie is a superstar, but he's so nice. He's so kind, polite to so many people. You can see how he acts. I really respect him off the field, even more so than on the field. I think he's probably a top 5 baseball player in the game, if not higher. But just the person he is very admirable for me. I just enjoy being around him and the smile and the joy that he has. And one of my favorite things about Mookie Betts is, on my way, I'll tell you, I actually listened to the first, I watched the first couple innings of the All-Star game on my phone because my son had a baseball game. I was at his game. For the record, if you're watching a game on your phone while your son's team is playing, careful about your exuberations. I was watching that first inning, the top of the first inning. I'll get back to Mookie in a second, but I was watching the top of the first inning on my phone while my son's team was up to bat. My son wasn't up to bat. If he was up, I would have been paying attention to him. My son wasn't up. He wasn't on the field. So I was paying attention to Clayton Kershaw. And when Kershaw picked off Ohtani, I said, yes, he got him, like out loud, loudly. Happened to be right at the same moment that my son's teammate struck out looking. And my son's teammate's family did not look at me with the fondest of looks. So know your surroundings when you're watching. But anyway, so I watched the first half, or the first couple of innings on my phone, listened to the rest on the radio, or most of the rest on the radio, driving home from my son's game, and then watched the last couple of innings on TV. But the reason I brought that up is because on my way to the game, driving, I was listening to country music, as I often do, and the song Humble and Kind came on by Tim McGraw. And that song, one of the lines, I don't remember the exact lines. It's actually a little bit later. Tim McGraw, I'm more of a 90s country guy, and that's from Tim McGraw's early 2000s era. I love the song, though. But when he talks about when your accomplishments come, when the hard work that you put in is realized, feel that sense of pride, but always stay humble and kind. And nothing could describe Mookie Betts more perfectly. And what I love in this article is that Fabian got Mookie Betts to comment on Mookie Betts and his kindness as a person. And Mookie said, that's the easiest way to navigate life. Just be yourself and not have to put on a face and whatnot. I got genuine love for everybody. And so everything I do, it's not just because you're a teammate of mine, it's because you're a brother of mine. If you don't love Mookie Betts, you're doing life wrong. And so he was the perfect person to honor Mrs. Robinson on her 100th birthday because he has genuine love for her late husband, and for everybody. And it's a, I don't know. I don't know that there are very many people better in this world than Mookie Betts. And to be in the position he is, have the I don't know what the word is. I know the word. I just can't think of it right now. But have the platform that Mookie has by virtue of being so good. One other person I compare him to is Donovan Mitchell in the NBA. And there's a lot of really good NBA players, but Donovan Mitchell, maybe I'm more aware of him because I live here in Utah. But the way there's a kid actually in my goes to the same school as my daughter, the same high school, and Utah. There's not the most racially diverse place. There's a lot of diversity, but not a lot of racial diversity. And there was a kid at my daughter's high school who was being bullied because of his race. And Donovan Mitchell heard about it, and he invited that kid and his family to come to the Jazz game and sat them at half court, at courtside, and just took care of them, just like people like that. And Clayton Kershaw is another example. If you haven't seen the video of the little kid meeting Clayton Kershaw today after Kershaw's press conference, find it. A kid whose grandpa had dreamed of meeting Clayton Kershaw, then his grandpa died of cancer, and this kid got to live out his grandpa's dream. People like Mookie Betts and Clayton Kershaw and Donovan Mitchell is what every athlete should aspire to be. Be great so you have that platform, and then use that platform to do good in the world. I love it. I know this is cheesy. I'm sorry. I'm a cheesy old man. Maybe it's the dad in me. I don't know, but I loved it. I love Mookie Betts. And so that's it for the Mookie talk. I'm going to come back in a minute, and I'm going to talk just a little bit about the Dodgers' first half and what they have to do in the second half to win the National League West Division. Hint, not a whole lot, but hopefully they'll do a lot anyway. So thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every day, and please keep it Locked On Dodgers. BetOnline.net is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your betting needs. Find all your favorite sports and events at the #1 online source for odds, lines, and games. Find reviews and news of every league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all your sports wagering information, from live in-game betting, scores, and podcasts. They have you covered. Head to BetOnline today or use your mobile device to learn more about the action happening today. BetOnline, where the game starts. Which NFL stars move the betting line the most? Starting July 18th, Locked On gives you the 50 most valuable players in the NFL from the odds makers at BetOnline. Available June 18th on Locked On NFL, wherever you get your podcasts, and on YouTube. All right, last segment here. We've got, 5 or 6 minutes left. I just want to talk. I did a Twitter thread about this, and I know not all of our listeners follow me on Twitter, shamefully. If you do, look, my Twitter handle is right there on the screen if you're watching on YouTube. If you're not, it's at Snidog, SNIDOG. I'll tell you that again at the end of the show. But anyway, the numbers have changed a little bit because I wrote this on Saturday night, and then the Padres did us a favor and lost on Sunday. So the Dodgers actually go into the All-Star break with a 10-game lead over the Padres. And I was looking into just crunching some numbers, basically, of what that means. The Dodgers are on pace for 108 wins. The Padres are on pace for 90. That means if both teams play to their pace, the Dodgers would finish the season 18 games ahead of the Padres, which means the Padres have to make up 18 games on their pace, or some combination of the Padres making up and the Dodgers dropping to make up that 18-game gap. So what would that look like? For the Padres to get to 108 wins, let's assume the Dodgers maintain their pace, win 108 wins. For the Padres to get to 108 wins, they'd have to go 56-12 the rest of the way. That's a 133 win pace over a full season. I mentioned they're on pace for 90 wins. That means they'd have to outperform their first half by the equivalent of 43 games of full season pace. So to give you an idea of how big 43 games is over a full season, you remember 2017 when the Dodgers had the best record in baseball and the Giants had the worst record in baseball? The Dodgers finished 40 games ahead of the Giants that year. So the Padres need to outperform themselves by more than the best team in baseball outperformed the worst team in baseball in 2017. And again, we're not talking about being 43 games better than a bad team like the Dodgers were in 2017. We're talking about being 43 games better than their first half selves. Yeah, they're theoretically getting Fernando Tatis Jr. back at some point, but I don't think even the most bullish projections have Tatis as a 43 WAR player. Nobody has ever come within, 30 WAR of that over a course of a season. So, what if the Dodgers underperform? Let's say the Dodgers are terrible. They go 500 the second half. I think we can all agree the Dodgers playing 500 baseball the rest of the season would be terrible, right? They would finish with 96 wins if they did that. That means the Padres would have to go 44-24 just to match the Dodgers going 500 the rest of the way. So the Padres have to play at a 105 win pace, which is 15 games better than their first half pace. And that's if the Dodgers go, play 500 ball. I guess it's theoretically possible the Dodgers could play under 500 the rest of the season. It's really hard to imagine. And there's also always the possibility that the Dodgers actually play a little bit better in the second half. They've had injuries. They've had obviously ineffectiveness from Max Muncy and Cody Bellinger. And, even some of the guys who have good numbers right now haven't been solid the whole season. And so a little bit more consistency. It's not crazy to think this Dodgers team could end the season with 110 wins. Everything, on top of that 108 just makes it even more and more unlikely that the Padres can catch them. So the bottom line is the Dodgers are absolutely in the driver's seat, and they are so firmly in the driver's seat. They got the seatbelt on, maybe even like a race car, the whole harness in. It's going to be really hard to get them out of that driver's seat. But I think the Dodgers understand that the thing you do when you're in the driver's seat is you hit the gas, you keep on going until somebody makes you stop, because there are other things to play for than winning the National League West. There's having the best record in the National League, or at least one of the top two records, so you get a bye in the first round. But obviously, best record in the National League means home field advantage throughout the National League portion of the postseason. Best record in Major League Baseball. They're currently like 2.5 games behind the Yankees. Best record in baseball means guarantees them home field advantage throughout the postseason. There are things to play for, and that's good. And the Dodgers, being in the situation they're in, they can be judicious. They can go to a 6-man rotation for a while, knowing, we've got a lot of good pitchers, especially if they trade for another starting pitcher. Well, you've got a lot of good starting pitchers. Let's do a 6-man rotation for a little while. They can do things like that, knowing that they don't. Last year, they had to fight tooth and nail until the last game of the season because they were trying to pass the Giants in the West. And that fighting tooth and nail cost them in the postseason. They were tired. This way, you can keep your foot on the gas all the way for another 2 months and just put so much distance between themselves and the Padres and Giants, between themselves and the Mets for second best record in base in the National League. Maybe even pass up the Yankees, or figure out they're not gonna either way. But then they can spend the last couple of weeks getting guys some rest, setting things up for the postseason. Whatever they want to do, they can do it. And that's the benefit of being as good as the Dodgers have been so far. And like I said, I'll repeat it one more time. No Dodger fan would look at how they've played so far and said, yes, the Dodgers are firing on all cylinders. There are still cylinders to be fired upon. And hopefully they will do that, because I would love to see them just fly past that 108 number and push past that 116 record number. Let's win a crap load of games, Dodgers. It's going to be a fun second half, and hopefully not a stressful one, as these numbers have illustrated. So that's going to do it for me today. Thank you all for watching or listening to Locked On Dodgers. We really appreciate you making us your first listen every day. Now for your second listen, check out Locked On MLB Prospects. Host Lindsey Crosby is a prospect encyclopedia, and he's going deep on the MLB stars of tomorrow. It's free and available wherever you get podcasts. You can also, if you're not watching or listening to us every day, we'd love if you add 1 or 2 days a month to your rotation. It would mean a lot to us. If you have friends and family who love the Dodgers as much as you do, please tell them about the show. You can follow us on Instagram and on Twitter at Locked On Dodgers. Vince is on Twitter at Vince Samperio. I am on Twitter at Snidog, and the DMs are open in all of those places. You can also get a hold of us by email at lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or by voicemail or text message at 323-863-LOCK 5625. 5625? 5625. We are here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be here with us. When you get in your car or sit on your couch, tell your smart device to play podcast Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree, you just have to listen. We'll talk to you tomorrow.